Before we begin, let me be quite candid. Ranked choice as a voting system was not initially part of the package of ideas I had assembled on how to rescue American democracy. While I saw the merits of ranked choice voting, implementing it seems more like something to make American democracy healthier in the long run, as opposed to something that's desperately needed now. Recent events, however, have shifted my thinking. After witnessing the Capitol insurrection and the failure to convict its instigators, mainly due to entrenched partisanship, I've become convinced that this level of polarization is itself a huge problem that must be solved now. At present, too many politicians place exclusive emphasis on having their team win and making the other guys lose, and have lost sight of any sense of needing to do what's right for the country. That's why for this episode, we will be looking at the issue of polarization in American politics and its possible aforementioned solution, ranked choice voting. Political polarization is not unique to the United States. However, it has grown substantially in the last few decades. A Pew study showed that in 2014, 94% of Republicans had views that were to the right of the median Democrat, compared to 64% in 1994. During the same span, the number of people who have highly negative views of the other party has more than doubled to 43% of Republicans and 38% of Democrats. And this was in 2014. Imagine what it's like right now. What is behind the rise in partisanship in the United States? It's important to note that partisanship has not universally increased in Western democracies in recent decades. In fact, it has stayed flat or decreased in Australia, Germany, and the UK. Therefore, we can't blame the rise in polarization solely on the internet or other forms of mass media. So, what is the real cause behind this rise in partisanship? A better term than rise may be rebound. There is evidence that the polarization we see now may be the norm. Rather, the lack of partisanship in the past appears to be the anomaly. Before the 1960s, the deep south of the United States used to vote for the Democrats, with the Republican Party being considered the Northern Urban Party. However, the Democrats passing the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s changed this dynamic, leading to many voters being unsure of which party they should support. The perceived rise in polarization may largely be a result of the identity of these parties and their supporters having had a chance to settle, a process which is now largely complete. Whether it is a rise or a rebound in polarization, clearly it is a problem with deep roots in American politics. A healthy democracy depends on politicians being able to compromise and find common ground. At the very least, they should be able to agree to disagree in a civil way. Without this, democracy ceases to function, and partisan politics begins to attack the very institutions that are the foundation of society and prosperity. In order to save American democracy, we must reverse this trend. So, how can we reverse this trend of ever-increasing polarization? We could start by trying to break up the poles. The current polarization in the United States largely results from there being really only two poles for voters to gravitate to, Democrat or Republican. One reason why many other democracies are not as polarized is that there are multiple viable parties to choose from. So, why doesn't the US have multiple viable parties? Part of it is certainly historic, but it largely comes down to the voting system primarily used in the United States, first past the post. In first past the post, the candidate who earns the most votes wins the seat. While the system is clear and simple, it has many shortcomings. First past the post makes it difficult for more than two candidates or parties to gain traction. Even if you finish in third place and get 20% of the vote, you and your voters get nothing. You are considered a spoiler. There are other fundamental ways first past the post increases polarization. In first past the post, the winner only needs to win the approval of a minority. In fact, most voters may disapprove of them. This means polarizing candidates with a strong base can win elections. Finally, because you only need to win a plurality and not a majority, there is little incentive to reach across the aisle and earn the support of others. This leads to primary elections selecting candidates that toe the party line instead of ones with broader appeal. If you are seen as a bridge builder, there is a good chance you will get primaried or defeated by a candidate who has more extreme partisan views. Instead of the current voting system that encourages polarization, what if there was a voting system that did the opposite, one that encouraged moderate candidates who appeal to all voters instead of just their own party? This is the goal of ranked choice voting. In ranked choice voting, otherwise known as preferential voting or instant runoff voting or single transferable vote, voters rank candidates based on preference. The candidate with the lowest number of first place votes is eliminated, and their second place votes are distributed amongst the remaining candidates. The process continues until a candidate has the support from a majority of the electorate. Currently, ranked choice is used in Ireland, Australia, as well as the states of Maine, Alaska, and 20 cities across the United States. To see it in action, let's go to the Maine 2nd Congressional District election in 2018. Maine had recently instituted ranked choice voting for federal elections by referendum. In the first round, the incumbent Republican Bruce Poliquin won a plurality with 46.3% of the vote to 45.6% for his Democrat challenger Jared Golden. If this was a regular first-past-the-post election, Bruce would have won, but since he failed to gain a majority, there was a second round. In the second round, most of the 8% who voted for independence put their support behind Jared Golden, meaning he won the election 50.62% to 49.38%. It seems like Maine voters were happy with their choice, as in 2020, Golden was re-elected with 58% of the vote. At the beginning of the series, we said for a democracy to serve its people well, it must represent the will of the people, serve all people, and actually serve. By providing a clear winner and requiring the winning candidate to have the support of the majority, we can say that ranked choice voting produces results that represent the will of the people much better than first past the post. Secondly, ranked choice voting encourages candidates to serve all voters instead of just their own base. Lastly, ranked choice voting should result in representatives who are more moderate and willing to compromise, thus allowing the government as a whole to serve its people better. Now, does ranked choice voting actually reduce polarization? Ranked choice has only been implemented in a few places in the United States and only for a few decades at most, so it's hard to have definitive data as to whether or not it reduces political polarization. However, there is evidence that it reduces many of the things we associate with polarization, such as a lack of civility and negative campaigning. In a 2013 survey of cities that used ranked choice voting, only 5% of respondents thought that the candidates criticized each other a great deal of the time, compared to 25% in non-ranked choice voting cities. In addition, people who live in cities with ranked choice voting supported, and 90% of voters find the system simple. It will take time for us to see the long-term benefits of ranked choice voting. However, the early signs do appear very promising. If we really want to take on polarization and end the current political duopoly, I would recommend implementing a ranked choice voting system similar to what Alaska approved in the 2020 elections. In Alaska's system, there is an open primary where candidates from all parties run for office against each other. In Alaska's case, the top 4 vote getters in the primary head to a general election done by ranked choice. This breaks up the Republican-Democrat duopoly and allows for third-party or moderate candidates from the main two parties to have a real chance at winning. So, how do we make ranked choice a reality across the US? The good news is that ranked choice does not require a constitutional amendment. All it requires is for Congress to pass a bill mandating it. If you've been watching this series, you may be thinking, what does H.R. 1 do for ranked choice? H.R. 1 mandates that all election equipment be designed to handle ranked choice votes, and provide states with funding to purchase such equipment. However, H.R. 1 does not mandate ranked choice across the United States. That would require a separate bill. In the previous Congress, the Ranked Choice Voting Act was put forward by Congressman Jamie Rankin. However, the big challenge of establishing ranked choice across the United States is that neither of the major parties really wants it, since it threatens their duopoly. H.R. 1 had over 200 representatives co-sponsor it. The Ranked Choice Voting Act, by contrast, only had 13. It is unlikely we will see ranked choice advance through legislative action. In fact, the only way we've gotten to the point where we have 20 cities and 2 states with ranked choice is by citizen-led ballot measures. This is likely the only way we will see ranked choice spread across the US until there is enough momentum that there is no choice but to make it universal. It will likely be a long and slow process. Also, if we're going to reform the US voting system, is ranked choice the best option? Some of you may be arguing, why am I not advocating for other forms such as approval voting or score voting or star voting? After doing some brief research on all of these systems, I think they all have their merits and would likely be a significant improvement over the status quo. None of these options, however, is as established in the world as ranked choice. Secondly, some of these are more complex than ranked choice. Familiarity and complexity are both important factors that determine whether democratic reform takes root or not. You could have the best voting system proposal objectively, but if voters find it too strange or complex, they will not support it. While such systems may end up being better than ranked choice, I believe the difference would likely be marginal. We cannot let perfection be the enemy of the good. Even though it is not perfect, no system could be. Implementing ranked choice would be a massive improvement over the status quo, and is the most likely to succeed in getting passed with our support. The ranked choice movement is steadily growing across the United States, but it is clear that its progress is lagging behind some of the other reforms mentioned in this series. I think that's because many don't understand it or don't understand how important implementing it is. Maybe they think like I did, that having a ranked choice voting system is a nice to have, an improvement, but maybe not one that is urgently needed. However, the current state of American democracy shows that the current extreme level of polarization and partisanship is threatening its very foundation. More moderate voices are needed. America desperately needs politicians who serve the people instead of merely and exclusively their own party. Ranked choice is a tool that gives these voices a fighting chance. Thank you for watching. What do you think of ranked choice? Let me know in the comments below. I would like to give a shout out to Fairvote.org, an organization advocating for ranked choice voting, so if you want to see it spread across the US, consider supporting them. Finally, if you like this video, please consider sharing it, and if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing or supporting me on Patreon. In the next video, we will examine something that completely undermines American democracy, that has politicians only listening to some well-moneyed voices: campaign financing.